So good morning, everybody, and thank you, ET CFO, for having us over here. Um, so, the way we see the this session, the topic of the session today is, and let me just set the context by putting it together the way I see it. Uh, so, the COVID actually caught us all by surprise in 2020. I think nobody expected that. No amount of business continuity planning was able to support it. But all of us in the finance space and all the business leaders actually we responded that with a lot of fervor and rigor, and a lot of companies which were not even looking at transformation, they jumped on the bandwagon and drove significant amount of change, but largely to drive improvements in keeping the lights on, and a lot of that has been realized over the last few years. And as per the recent economic survey, there's a, people are believing that the India's recovery post-COVID is complete, and and hence, we are out of that woods. However, the headwinds which are emerging around inflation, supply chain is still there. IMF is also forecasting softening of growth rate in India, and hence the topic which is being set up, I guess, is extremely topical in terms of how do we, as CFOs, sustain value creation in 2023. Um, in this context, what I wanted to share the way we see the world in IBM when we engage with a lot of CFOs is CFOs are focusing on three-pronged approach. Typically, one is to relook at their processes end to end, cutting out the non-value adding activities, standardizing, automating as much as possible, and pushing down decision making as much as possible so that there's reasonable amount of agility. The second big shift which is underway, and I think the previous panel talked a lot about that, is about looking at digitizing and upgrading the core, moving to cloud, leveraging technology as much as possible, because technology continues to be an important driver for a lot of this transformation. And third is once these two building blocks are being set up, how do you start leveraging the enormous amount of data which is sitting inside the company's system of records and things like that. So that's really how we see the world, and in that context, Deepal, if I could start by asking you, have you seen CFOs drive transformation post COVID, and what's been the broad areas of focus, and what has been the benefits which have come out of that?
Sure, thanks. Am I audible? Yeah. So, first, thank you for having me, Ramit. And very interesting previous session, I think, very insightful. And a lot of views in terms of the stock market changes and how you look at data being the new oil, and many other things. I think a lot of learnings and a lot of insightful conversations. And I hope we are able to garner as much interest as well in this conversation. But yes, you're right. I think, Ramit, your transformation journey, typically is more strategic, and it's how the board and how the leadership thinks about it. But come COVID, I think a lot of people who were still on the edge in terms of thinking whether we should jump into the transformation bandwagon, they kind of had no choice. They were pushed into the transformation. And more particularly, it was with a limited choice for continuity of business, as I may see, because a lot of businesses, because of COVID, had to kind of be enabled digitally. And I'll give you an example. Like, fortunately for a company like ours, we are typically a logistics company, which is brick and mortar. We actually physically move cargo. So when a lot of people, once somebody asked me in one of the sessions at the B school that are you threatened by e-commerce? The question that I told them, the reason I told them that, okay, you ordered online, but did you get your shoes from the computer? No. It came, somebody delivered it. So logistics companies are actually brick and mortar, and how do you digitally enable them? So with COVID happening, I think, fortunately for us, way before COVID, we had partially digitize some of our processes. Though, I mean, goods delivery have to have been physical. So, but the back-end processes were still, not completely digitized. So that for companies like us, a lot of people who were on the edge were forced to kind of move into a transformation. And what were the key elements of transformation? One, build resilience, for business, for kind of events like COVID, and we all know that this world is extremely volatile now, right? So everybody's expecting not a smooth journey, is expecting a lot of rough weather and a lot of headwinds to deal with. So I think transformation is become a large agenda. And yes, through COVID, a lot of people moved in. Yeah.
I think great points. What I was feverishly writing down, Deepal, was that the journey of transformation started early, and hence you were able to respond back, during that period with a fair bit of, agility. Now, a lot of that has been done and dusted, right? I mean, now, as we are gearing up for the uncertain times, how are you seeing this journey of transformation? Is it continuing unabated? Are there, and transformation cuts across all dimensions, people, process, technology, data. Is there any set of prioritization which you see happening here? How do you see this year and beyond?
Um, yeah, so I think I have a slightly different thought process on transformation, and I feel that. So one statement is, which I like to believe, is that now all companies are technology companies. So you have to imbibe technology to kind of move, and the rate at which technology is changing, you will have to continue to transform. So the thought here is that transformation is not a destination, it's actually a journey, and that's the most important thought. So it's not an event that you had a problem and you solved it and you stopped transformation. Yeah. So transformation will continue. Now it is upon the organization at what evolution stage they are in terms of transforming. Now it includes, transformation is a very wide term. It includes process transformation, it includes digitization, it includes automation, it includes creating COEs, that is Center of Excellences, creating shared services or managed services. So it depends on at what stage you are, what is that you are expecting yourself to deliver over a period of time in terms of strategy, in terms of value addition to the organization. And based on that, you will kind of, I think the organization will align itself in terms of whether to pause in some areas and accelerate in some other areas, whether look at, shared service as the first, kind of option to go for, or kind of change in terms of automation faster. So those are, I think, calls that, are more specific and to the organization and at the evolution state that they are. But the summary is, I don't think so organizations can pause transformation, and more particularly like organization like us, we believe that transformation is a journey and it will continue. So what I think a lot of organizations like us are seeing and also doing is, we are setting up permanent transformation offices. So it's part of a permanent structure, and it continues to see how the technology changes happen over a period of time, and how do we adopt them to kind of improve our business models, and finally improve delivery to all our stakeholders. And for a logistics company, I'll go back to a little bit of COVID. For a logistics company, we felt very responsible that we had to deliver cargo to a world which was, I mean, coming to a halt, right? And we weren't shut for a single day, and we were very fortunate to have, both a partly digitalized process and partly, brick and mortar processes work very well in alignment. And so I think all organizations will continue to transform slowly, and it's a journey, like I say.
Um, so again, what I was noting down, and Deepal, it's good news for companies like us that all you're saying all companies are technology companies. So that's amazing. And also the fact that transformation is a journey; it's not a destination. I think that's a great comment, and thank you for your vision on that side. As we engage with a lot of CFOs and business leaders at large, the thinking which is there in ourselves is that the nature of transformation is changing. There used to be a time, like you talked about, setting up COEs, shared service center, or upgrading an ERP system. Those are point solutions which many companies have embarked on. And now the next phase of transformation is more multidimensional, which if let's say one is looking at your entire sales cycle, so the entire lead to cash in terms of how do we get better visibility of sales pipeline, your discounting mechanism, etc. So it requires collaboration across multiple stakeholders, multiple geographies, and a global corporation like yours. It's far more diverse and distributed. So in such scenarios, how do you see transformation being continuing while you have a central transformation office, but it will require collaboration across multiple stakeholders? I suspect the definition of success may also change. Your thoughts on that would be very helpful.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, so I think Ramit, you're very right. I think earlier transformative journeys were very kind of run in silos. Finance department used to run, an ERP transformation, and it was just touching very limited part of operations or sales. And today, I think the interconnectivity of everything, from sales to ops to the entire external world with your organization, and a lot of data flowing from inside out and outside in. I think you cannot have a transformation which is run in silo. And the whole transformation journey has to be a very, very wide approach. You're receiving several information data points from several places, which is allowing you to kind of make decisions, which is allowing you to stay connected. So these are the transformation journey, and the scope, I think, is no more limited just to mere finance. You can have a focus on finance, but it kind of interlinks many, many other places. So I think as we are seeing more and more, the transformation, like earlier, there were specific ERP related transformations, but these are much wider transformations, digitally enabled, connected to the real world, on an ongoing basis and on a real-time basis. And that's where I think it's important for us to understand that transformation is a much wider subject and covers a lot of dimensions.
Yeah, so in this phase of collaboration, if I could ask you, what's the role which CFOs are playing? As per a recent survey which we did in IBM, we figured out that almost 80% of CFOs in India are in the center and midst of the transformation, because it cuts across departments, divisions, so to speak. So not only keeping the ship stable, but also steering it in the right direction is the responsibility which CFOs are undertaking. What's your thought on that?
So Ramit, I think it's not only transformation. I think the CFO's role per se is, I think, changing quite a bit from where it was. I think today CFO takes a lead in many aspects of the organization, in terms of strategy, in terms of business partnering, enable business achieve targets. So it's no more a back office function. So with that changing role of finance, I think ability to kind of drive transformation across the functions is, I think, some CFOs carry that as an agenda, and I think that's the I think focal point that a lot of CFOs try to do to add value to the organization, and I think that's the way to go. I think over a period of time, I think the lines between finance and non-finance at the leadership level are blurring very fast. And I think transformation will transform itself cuts across, like I said, it's no more a silo activity. It cuts across several functions. So CFO's role obviously kind of becomes much larger than pure finance when it leads itself into the organizational transformation journey. And also, since there are a lot of interdependencies, and I would like to, as an example, even bring it up, is that in our organization also, I think what we are doing is the project management office, which is for the transformation, typically is cross-functional. It's not finance. Because, like I said, there are so many touch points and so many interdependencies. You have to ensure that everybody's interest and everybody's stake is well covered. So that's where I think the touch points for all the relative cross-functional leads come in and makes it a much wider role.
Okay, till the time the questions come, Deepal would like to, ask you, as a leader and as a visionary who looks at transformation as a journey, what are the key risks which you worry about, right? I mean, is it about being able to fund that transformation, find monies behind it? Is it about the talent? Is it about the cost of technology, not getting the right partners? What worries you to make this work?
I think in today's world, funding is the least worry. I think there is more money than the ideas it is chasing. I think change management and talent, these are key drivers and the key important things which are very important. And these are the risks that organization takes. You may have a wonderful transformative journey laid out in a boardroom, but if people on the ground are not willing to change, it will definitely not be successful. So a successful transformation is one which imbibes a lot of change management and an ability to kind of drive this through the organization, ability to make people at all levels understand that what value each of the transformative exercises are going to bring them is very important. So I think change management, I think for me, takes as number one criteria from a risk perspective. If you aren't doing that well, I think irrespective of what kind of transformative exercise you're doing, you're not going to be successful in implementation. Talent, that's it's I think a huge deficit as we see. I think at least from what we are seeing is that there is a mismatch basically. I wouldn't say the word is deficit. There's a lot of mismatch in what you want versus what you get. And there I think getting the right talent to deliver the transformation is also very, very important. Over the last 2 years, on a lighter note, the amount of people going into transformation has sucked up all the resources on the talent on transformation and project management. So the people available, the skill set available in the market is very limited. So I think talent more particularly is very, very important as well.
Okay, I'll just try if there are still any questions here for Deepal. Okay, so otherwise I think we are pretty much on time. So I'll just try and wrap up, Deepal. What I was feverishly making notes. So that transformation. I think you're saying that companies don't have a choice. It's not only about value creation but also value preservation. I think I'm borrowing the term which I learned from you, and it's increasingly becoming collaborative with a centralized transformation office, so to speak, which is driving that for you. And change management is super important, and talent mismatch is an area of concern, right? So thank you very much for those comments and observations.